The twins' laughter stopped the moment the doctor's verdict landed like a guillotine. Permanent blindness. In the sterile Manhattan office, Claire Hensley, billionaire tech mogul, gripped the edge of her chair, her knuckles white, as if she could crush the diagnosis with sheer will. But it was Nora, the new nanny, who felt the room tilt, her heart racing as she watched the twins, Lily and Rose, cling to each other, their small hands trembling. Nora hadn't expected to care this much. She'd taken the job out of necessity, bills piling up, her art degree gathering dust, and a breakup that still stung like salt in a wound. At 28, she was no stranger to heartbreak, but the sight of those 6-year-old girls, their hazel eyes clouded yet brimming with something unspoken, hit her harder than she'd imagined. Claire, their mother, was a fortress of control, her tailored suits and sharp commands a shield against the world. But Nora saw the cracks, Claire's late-night pacing, the way her voice softened when she thought no one was listening, whispering apologies to her daughters as they slept. The penthouse on the Upper East Side was a gilded cage, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers, but it felt hollow. Lily and Rose, identical in their delicate features and chestnut curls, navigated it with uncanny precision, their blindness a recent affliction after a rare genetic condition surfaced. Specialists from Boston to London had been unanimous. No cure, no hope. Yet Nora, who'd only been there a week, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The twins weren't just adapting, they were seeing things in their own way. The way Lily tilted her head toward the window when a bird chirped, or how Rose reached for her favorite blue scarf without hesitation. Nora's first real conversation with Claire came on a rainy Tuesday, the city a blur of gray beyond the windows. Claire stood by the grand piano, her fingers tracing its edge absently. "You're not like the others," she said, her voice low, almost accusing. "The last nanny quit after a month. Said it was too hard to watch them suffer." "They're not suffering," Nora replied, too quickly. Claire's eyes narrowed, but Nora pressed on. "They're aware. More than you think." She hesitated, her throat tight. "I know it sounds crazy, but I've seen them react to things they shouldn't notice. Like light. Or movement." Claire's laugh was sharp, bitter. "Don't give me hope, Nora. Hope is a liar." But her gaze lingered, searching Nora's face for something, truth, maybe, or a reason to believe. That night, Nora stayed late, sketching in the twins' playroom while they slept. Her pencil moved in soft strokes, capturing Lily's shy smile, Rose's curious tilt of the head. She'd always found truth in art, in the way lines revealed what words couldn't. And in those sketches, she saw it. The twins weren't lost in darkness. They were reaching for light. The next morning, Nora caught Rose humming a tune she'd only heard once, from a street musician blocks away. "How do you remember that?" Nora asked, kneeling beside her. Rose giggled, her fingers brushing Nora's arm. "I see it in my head," she said simply. Nora's pulse quickened. She glanced at Lily, who was arranging toy blocks in a perfect circle. "Lily, can you tell me what I'm holding?" Nora asked, waving a red ball. Lily paused, her head cocked. "It's bright," she whispered. Nora's breath caught. She hadn't described the color. Claire was in Silicon Valley for a conference, leaving Nora with the twins for 3 days. It was a chance to test her theory. She started small, holding up colored cards, describing shapes, watching their reactions. Rose clapped when Nora held a yellow square. Lily frowned at a green triangle, saying it felt wrong. By the second day, Nora was sure. The twins weren't blind in the way the doctors claimed. Their condition was complex, maybe psychosomatic, maybe something science hadn't named yet. But they were perceiving the world, and Nora was determined to prove it. She didn't expect the resistance. The twins' private tutor, a rigid woman named Miss Hargrove, scoffed when Nora mentioned her observations. "You're projecting," she said, adjusting her glasses. "They're blind, Miss Evans. Accept it." Even the household staff whispered, their pity for the twins laced with doubt about Nora's fantasies. But Nora couldn't unsee what she'd seen. She stayed up late, researching rare visual disorders, emailing specialists, her inbox filling with dismissive replies. When Claire returned, Nora was ready to confront her. She found her in the study, surrounded by papers, her face pale under the glow of a laptop. "We need to talk about the twins," Nora said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Claire looked up, exhausted but sharp. "What now?" "I don't think they're blind," Nora said. "Not completely. They're responding to visual stimuli. I've tested them, Claire. They see things." Claire's expression hardened. "You're not a doctor. You're a nanny." Her words cut, but Nora held her ground. "Then let me show you," she said. "Give me a week. If I'm wrong, I'll quit." Claire stared, her silence heavy. Finally, she nodded. 1 week. Nora felt the weight of it, her job, her heart, the twins' future, all hanging on 7 days. She didn't know then that those days would unravel secrets far beyond the twins' eyes, secrets that would bind her to Claire in ways neither could have predicted. Nora's week began with a quiet rebellion. She turned the twins' playroom into a laboratory of sorts, filling it with objects of different colors, textures, and sounds. She hung fairy lights that flickered softly, placed textured rugs on the floor, and scattered toys that jingled or glowed. The twins, sensing the change, giggled as they explored, their small hands tracing patterns Nora had carefully arranged. She watched them closely, noting every reaction, every hint of awareness. Lily reached for a shimmering silver bell without prompting. Rose paused before a red cushion, her fingers hovering as if she could sense its vibrancy. Claire observed from the doorway, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Nora felt the scrutiny, but pushed forward. "Watch this," she said, holding up a blue scarf and waving it slowly. Rose's head turned, her lips parting in a small gasp. "It's moving," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Claire's eyes widened, but she said nothing, her jaw tight. Nora's confidence grew, but so did the pressure. She wasn't just fighting for the twins, she was challenging a narrative that had defined Claire's life for months. The billionaire's world was one of absolutes, diagnoses, contracts, outcomes. Nora, with her sketchpad and stubborn hope, was an outsider threatening that order. She felt it in the way Claire's staff whispered, in the cold emails from specialists dismissing her unqualified theories. But Nora had spent her life being underestimated by her conservative parents who'd shunned her for loving women, by the art world that saw her as too emotional. She wasn't about to back down now. By day 3, Nora introduced a game. She called it Find the Light. She'd dim the room, then shine a flashlight in patterns, circles, zigzags, slow arcs. The twins, seated on the rug, would point to where they thought the light was. Lily was better at it, her guesses eerily accurate, while Rose relied more on sound cues, giggling when she got it wrong. Nora kept a notebook, scribbling observations. Lily tracks light 80% of the time. Rose responds to color contrast. She showed it to Claire that evening, her hands trembling as she flipped through the pages. "This isn't proof," Claire said, but her voice lacked conviction. She lingered on a sketch Nora had drawn, a rough outline of the twins holding hands under a beam of light, their faces alive with wonder. "You're seeing what you want to see. Then why do they react?" Nora pressed, stepping closer. "Why does Lily know the light's shape? Why does Rose smile at red, but not green? They're not blind, Claire. Not the way everyone thinks." Claire's eyes flickered with something. Fear, maybe, or hope she didn't dare name. "If you're wrong, you're giving them false hope. You're giving me false hope." Her voice broke on the last word, and Nora's chest ached. She wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between them, but Claire turned away, retreating to her study. The next day, Nora took a risk. She brought the twins to Central Park, ignoring Ms. Hargrove's protests about routine. The park was alive with autumn, leaves crunching underfoot, the air crisp and golden. Nora guided the twins to a bench, describing the scene: the red of a maple tree, the glint of a pond, the blur of joggers. She held up a bright orange leaf, watching as Rose's fingers traced its edges, her face lighting up. "It's like fire," Rose said, and Nora laughed, her heart swelling. But the moment was fleeting. That evening, Claire confronted her in the penthouse kitchen, her voice low and furious. "You took them out without permission. Do you know how dangerous that is? They're fragile, Nora. They're blind." "They're not fragile," Nora shot back, her own anger rising. "They're kids. They need to feel the world, not be locked in this museum." She gestured at the pristine counters, the silent appliances. "You're so busy protecting them, you're forgetting to let them live." Claire's face paled, and for a moment, Nora thought she'd crossed a line. But then Claire's shoulders sagged, and she sank into a chair. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I'm trying to keep them safe. To keep them here." Her voice cracked, and Nora saw the weight of it. Years of building an empire, only to watch her daughters slip into darkness. Nora knelt beside her, hesitating before placing a hand on Claire's arm. "I know," she said softly, "but they're not gone. They're right here, and they're seeing more than you think." Claire didn't pull away, but her eyes were distant, haunted. Nora felt a pull, a dangerous warmth, but she pushed it down. This wasn't about her. It was about Lily and Rose, and the truth she was determined to uncover. By the end of the week, Nora had enough data to approach a new specialist, Dr. Patel, a neurologist who'd written about atypical visual processing. She sent him her notes, the twins' reactions, even her sketches. His reply was cautious but open: possible cortical visual impairment. Need further tests. It wasn't a victory, but it was a start. As the seventh day loomed, Nora felt the stakes rising. She wasn't just fighting for the twins' sight. She was fighting for Claire's trust and for a truth that could change everything. But the deeper she dug, the more she realized the twins' condition wasn't the only secret in the Hensley household. Claire's guarded glances, her late-night calls, hinted at something deeper, something Nora wasn't sure she was ready to face. The deadline loomed like a storm cloud. Nora had one day left to prove her theory, and the weight of it pressed against her chest. She'd spent the night poring over Dr. Patel's email, his words looping in her mind. Cortical visual impairment could explain inconsistent visual responses. It wasn't blindness in the traditional sense, more like the brain struggling to process what the eyes could still detect. Nora clung to that possibility, but convincing Claire was another battle entirely. That morning, she set up her most ambitious test yet. In the twins' playroom, she arranged a series of glowing objects: LED candles, a spinning color wheel, a tablet playing soft patterns of light. She guided Lily and Rose through it, her voice steady, but her heart racing. "Tell me what you feel," she said, holding up a flickering blue light. Lily's fingers twitched, her head tilting toward it. "It's cold," she said, and Nora's breath caught. Rose, beside her, pointed at a red glow. "That one's warm." Claire watched from the corner, her arms folded tightly, her eyes darting between her daughters and Nora. When Rose correctly identified a yellow star on the tablet, Claire stepped forward, her voice sharp. "How are you doing this? Are you prompting them?" "I'm not," Nora said, meeting her gaze.
"They're doing it themselves."
"They're seeing Claire in their own way." She handed Claire her notebook, pages filled with observations, timestamps, and sketches. "This isn't my imagination. It's real." Claire's hands shook as she flipped through the pages, pausing on a drawing of the twins reaching for a light, their faces alight with curiosity. For a moment, her guard dropped, and Nora saw raw vulnerability, a mother desperate to believe. But then Claire's phone buzzed, and her walls went back up. "I have a meeting," she said curtly, handing the notebook back. "We'll talk later." Nora's frustration flared, but she focused on the twins. She spent the day refining her tests, noting how Lily responded better to shapes, while Rose was drawn to colors. By afternoon, she crafted a makeshift vision board, bright, contrasting patterns she hoped would stimulate their brains. The twins laughed as they touched it, their fingers tracing circles and lines, their voices overlapping with excitement. Nora's heart swelled, but a nagging doubt lingered. What if she was wrong? What if she was pushing too hard, risking Claire's trust and the twins' fragile hope? That evening, Nora found Claire in the penthouse's rooftop garden, a rare oasis of green above the city's chaos. The skyline glittered below, but Claire stood alone, staring at the horizon. Nora hesitated, then approached. "I'm not trying to hurt them," she said softly. I see something in them. Something the doctors missed." Claire didn't turn, but her voice was low, strained. "Do you know what it's like to hear no hope from every expert? To watch your children fade and know you can't fix it?" She faced Nora, her eyes glistening. "I built a company that changes the world, but I can't save my own daughters." Nora stepped closer, her voice steady. "You don't have to save them alone. Let me help. Let them show you what they can do." Claire's gaze softened, and for a moment, the air between them crackled with something unspoken. Nora's pulse quickened, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the twins. "Dr. Patel wants to see them," she said. "He thinks it's worth testing. Tomorrow." Claire nodded, but her expression was guarded. "If this fails, Nora, it's not just her job. It's their hearts. And mine." The weight of her words settled over Nora as she returned to the twins' room. She tucked them in, their small hands gripping hers. "Are we going to see better?" Rose whispered, her voice hopeful. Nora swallowed, her throat tight. "We're going to try, sweetheart." The next morning, Dr. Patel's office was a stark contrast to the penthouse, clinical, cold, but buzzing with possibility. He tested the twins with lights, patterns, and scans, his face unreadable. Nora stood beside Claire, their shoulders brushing, the tension palpable. When Patel finally spoke, his words were cautious but electrifying. "There's activity in their visual cortex. It's not typical blindness. We need more data, but you might be onto something." Claire's hand found Nora's, squeezing briefly before pulling away. It was a fleeting gesture, but it burned through Nora, a mix of hope and something deeper, something dangerous. As they left the office, the twins skipping ahead, Nora felt the story shifting. It wasn't just about the twin site anymore. It was about Claire, her walls, her secrets, and the pull Nora couldn't ignore. Back at the penthouse, Nora overheard a hushed phone call. Claire's voice, sharp and low, mentioned the foundation and keeping it quiet. Nora's stomach twisted. Was Claire hiding something about the twins' condition? Something that could explain why the doctors had been so quick to dismiss hope? She didn't want to believe it, but the doubt took root, growing alongside her feelings for Claire, feelings she hadn't dared name until now. Nora's discovery of Claire's secretive call gnawed at her, but she buried it under her focus on the twins. Dr. Patel's tests had opened a door, and Nora was determined to push through it. She spent the next few days coordinating with Patel's team, scheduling follow-up scans while keeping the twins' routines light and playful. Lily and Rose thrived in the new games Nora invented, matching sounds to colors, tracing shapes in the air. Their laughter filled the penthouse, a stark contrast to the tension simmering between Nora and Claire. Claire was distant, her days consumed by meetings and cryptic phone calls. When she was home, she watched Nora with a mix of gratitude and wariness, as if afraid to hope too much. Nora felt it too, the fragile thread of trust between them, stretched thin by unspoken questions. She wanted to confront Claire about the call, about what the foundation meant, but every time she tried, Claire's guarded eyes stopped her. Instead, Nora poured her energy into the twins, sketching their progress in her notebook, each page a testament to their resilience. One evening, as Nora tucked the twins into bed, Lily grabbed her hand. "Are you going to stay with us?" she asked, her voice small but piercing. Nora's heart clenched. She'd grown to love these girls, their quiet strength, their unspoken bond. "I'm not going anywhere," she promised, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. But as she left their room, she caught Claire watching from the hallway, her expression unreadable. "You're good with them," Claire said, her voice softer than usual. "Better than I am, sometimes." Nora hesitated, the weight of Claire's words pulling her closer. "You're their mom. They feel you, even when you're not there." She wanted to say more, to ask about the call, but the moment felt too fragile. Instead, she offered a small smile. "We're getting somewhere with Dr. Patel. The twins are responding." Claire nodded, but her eyes were distant. "I'm funding his research," she said abruptly. "The foundation, it's for rare disorders. I didn't tell you because it's personal." She looked away, her fingers twisting together. "I've failed them before. I can't fail them again." Nora's breath caught, the pieces clicking into place. The foundation wasn't a secret plot. It was Claire's lifeline, her way of fighting for her daughters. But the admission only deepened Nora's questions. Why the secrecy? What else was Claire holding back? The next day, Nora took the twins to Patel's lab for advanced scans. The results were promising but inconclusive. Their visual cortex showed activity, but the signals were erratic, as if their brains were rewiring themselves. Patel was optimistic, suggesting targeted therapy to strengthen their neural pathways. Nora felt a surge of hope, but Claire's reaction was muted, her smile tight. "We'll see," she said, and Nora's frustration flared. Why couldn't Claire believe in this? That night, Nora found Claire in the study, surrounded by papers marked with the Foundation's logo. "You're not telling me everything," Nora said, her voice steady despite the risk. "What's going on, Claire? Why are you so afraid to hope?" Claire's eyes flashed, but her voice was low, raw. "Because hope hurts. Because I've been here before, promises, tests, failures. And every time, it's my girls who pay the price." She stood, closing the distance between them. "You're so sure you're right, Nora. But what if you're not?" Nora held her gaze, her heart pounding. "What if I am? What if they're seeing more than anyone realizes, and you're too scared to let them try?" The air crackled, their faces inches apart. For a moment, Nora thought Claire might turn away, but instead, she stepped closer, her breath warm against Nora's cheek. "You don't know what it's like," Claire whispered, her voice breaking. "To love them so much it's killing you." Nora's throat tightened, her own feelings spilling over. Admiration, frustration, something deeper she couldn't name. She reached out, her hand brushing Claire's arm, and Claire didn't pull away. The moment stretched, electric and fragile, until Claire stepped back, her walls snapping back into place. "I'm sorry," Claire said, turning to the window. "I can't do this." Nora left the study, her heart racing, her mind a tangle of questions. The twins' progress was undeniable, but Claire's fear, and whatever she was hiding, cast a shadow over it all. Nora knew she was close to a breakthrough, not just for Lily and Rose, but for the connection she felt with Claire, a connection that scared her as much as it thrilled her. But the truth, whatever it was coming, and Nora wasn't sure any of them were ready for it. Nora woke to the sound of rain battering the penthouse windows, the city a blur of gray beyond the glass. The tension from last night's confrontation with Claire lingered, heavy as the storm outside. She'd crossed a line, pushing Claire too hard, but retreating wasn't an option. The twins' progress was too real, their small victories too precious. Nora dressed quickly, her sketchpad tucked under her arm, determined to keep moving forward. In the playroom, she set up a new exercise, a grid of lights that pulsed in sequences, paired with sounds to guide the twins. Lily and Rose sat cross-legged, their faces focused as they pointed to the lights they felt. Lily nailed the pattern every time, her small hands steady. Rose struggled but laughed, undeterred. Nora's notebook filled with notes. Lily tracks sequences with 90% accuracy. Rose responds to rhythm. She glanced at the doorway, half expecting Claire, but it was empty. The absence stung more than it should have. Dr. Patel called that afternoon with a breakthrough. The scans show neural plasticity, he said, his voice crackling with excitement. Their brains are adapting, compensating for the damage. It's not a cure, but with therapy, they could regain functional vision. Nora's heart soared, but when she shared the news with Claire, the response was a curt nod. "Keep me updated," Claire said, already turning to her phone. Nora wanted to scream, to shake her, but she bit it back. Claire's walls were higher than ever, and Nora didn't know how to reach her. That evening, Nora took a chance. She invited Claire to join the twins' game, hoping to bridge the gap. Claire hesitated, then sat beside Rose, her tailored blazer out of place among the scattered toys. Nora guided her hand to a glowing orb, describing its soft blue light. "Rose loves this one," Nora said. "She says it feels like the sky." Rose giggled, leaning into Claire, and for a moment, Claire's face softened, her fingers lingering on the orb. "You're good at this," Claire said quietly, her eyes meeting Nora's, making them believe in something. "It's not about believing," Nora replied, her voice low. "It's about seeing what's already there." Their gazes held, the air thick with unspoken words. Nora felt it again. That pull, that dangerous warmth, but Claire looked away, breaking the moment. Later, Nora overheard another of Claire's calls, this one more heated. "The Foundation's funding is secure," Claire snapped. "But no one can know about the trials." "Not yet." Nora's stomach twisted. Trials? Was Claire testing experimental treatments on the twins without telling her? The thought made her blood run cold, but she couldn't confront Claire, not without proof. The next day, Nora dug deeper. She searched the study when Claire was out, finding a locked drawer in her desk. Guilt gnawed at her, but she jimmied it open, revealing a file marked Hensley Foundation. Inside were reports on clinical trials for rare visual disorders, some mentioning adverse effects and ethical concerns. Nora's hands shook as she read. Was Claire risking the twins' health for a cure? Or was this her way of fighting for them? She confronted Claire that night, the file in hand. "What are these?" Nora demanded, her voice trembling. "Are you experimenting on them?" Claire's face went white. "You went through my things?" Her voice was low, dangerous. "You have no idea what I'm doing for them." "Then tell me." Nora snapped. "I'm fighting for them too, Claire. I deserve to know." Claire's eyes blazed, but her voice cracked. The Foundation funded a trial that went wrong. It had made their condition worse. "I didn't know." Tears welled, but she blinked them back. "I'm trying to fix it, Nora. Every day, I'm trying." Nora's anger dissolved, replaced by a flood of empathy. She stepped closer, her voice soft. "You don't have to do it alone. Let me in." Claire shook her head, stepping back.
You don't understand.
"If this fails, I lose them. I lose everything." Nora's heart ached, but she didn't push. She returned to the twins, her resolve stronger than ever. The trials explained Claire's fear, her secrecy, but they didn't change the truth. Lily and Rose were fighting too. And Nora would fight with them, no matter what it cost her. As the week ended, Patel's team proposed a new therapy plan, one that could amplify the twins' neural responses. Nora saw it as a lifeline, but Claire's hesitation lingered, a shadow over their fragile alliance. Nora knew the truth was close, but so was the risk of losing the twins' progress, Claire's trust, and the feelings she could no longer deny. The therapy plan was a gamble, but Nora was all in. Dr. Patel's proposal involved daily sessions of visual stimulation, lights, patterns, and tactile cues to retrain the twins' brains. Nora threw herself into it, turning the playroom into a vibrant maze of glowing shapes and soft sounds. Lily and Rose embraced it, their confidence growing with each session. Lily could now trace a star's outline with her finger. Rose named colors with startling accuracy. Nora's notebook overflowed with progress, but her heart was heavy with Claire's revelation about the failed trial. Claire was a ghost in her own home, her presence fleeting between meetings and late-night calls. When she joined the therapy sessions, Her eyes followed Nora with a mix of gratitude and something deeper, something that made Nora's pulse race. But the distance remained, a chasm widened by Claire's guilt and Nora's unanswered questions. Nora wanted to bridge it, to tell Claire she wasn't alone, but every attempt was met with a guarded glance or a quick retreat. One afternoon, as the twins napped, Nora found Claire in the rooftop garden, the city's hum a faint backdrop. "They're improving," Nora said, holding up her latest sketches, Lily and Rose laughing under a cascade of lights. "This is working, Claire. You have to see it." Claire's fingers brushed the page, her expression raw. "I see it," she whispered. "But I'm scared, Nora. What if it's not enough? What if I hurt them again?" Nora's heart twisted. She stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. "You didn't know the trial would fail. You were trying to save them. Let yourself hope again." Claire's eyes met hers, vulnerable and searching. For a moment, Nora thought she might close the distance, but Claire turned away, gripping the railing. "I don't know how," she said, her voice barely audible. Nora's feelings for Claire were a tangle she couldn't unravel. Admiration, frustration, a longing she hadn't felt since her last relationship crumbled. She pushed it down, focusing on the twins. But that night, as she tucked them in, Rose whispered, "Mommy's sad. Can you make her smile?" Nora's throat tightened. She wanted to more than she could admit. The next day, Patel's team reported a breakthrough. The twins' brain scans showed stronger visual cortex activity. "We're seeing progress beyond what we expected," Patel said, his voice bright. "Keep up the therapy. It's working." Nora shared the news with Claire, expecting relief, but Claire's face clouded. "What's the cost?" she asked. "What if it's another dead end?" Nora's patience snapped. "Stop expecting it to fail," she said, her voice rising. "They're fighting, Claire. They're showing us what they can do. Why can't you trust that?" Claire flinched, but her eyes held Nora's, fierce and unguarded. "Because I'm terrified of losing them. And you." The admission hung between them, raw and electric. Nora's breath caught, her heart pounding as Claire stepped closer, her hand brushing Nora's cheek. The touch was fleeting, but it burned, a spark that threatened to ignite everything. Before Nora could speak, Claire pulled back, her face shuddered. "I'm sorry," she said, retreating to her study. Nora stood frozen, her skin tingling where Claire's hand had been. She wanted to follow, to demand answers, but the twins' laughter from the playroom pulled her back. They were her focus, her purpose. But Claire was becoming something more, and that scared her. Nora dug into the Foundation's files again, this time with purpose. She found emails between Claire and a pharmaceutical company discussing the failed trial side effects: vision loss, neurological damage. The trial had been experimental, rushed, and Claire had pushed for it, desperate for a cure. The guilt was crushing her, Nora realized, and it explained her fear, her distance. But there was something else, a mention of a new trial, one Claire hadn't disclosed. Nora confronted her that night, the penthouse quiet except for the rain. "There's another trial, isn't there?" she asked, holding up a printed email. "Why didn't you tell me?" Claire's face crumpled. "Because it's a risk. Because I can't lose them again." She sank onto the couch, her voice breaking. "I love them, Nora. And I'm starting to care about you. Too much." Nora's heart stopped, then raced. She knelt before Claire, her hands on Claire's knees. "Then let me help. Let us fight this together." Their eyes locked, and for the first time, Claire didn't look away. The truth was close, but so was the storm, and Nora knew it would test them all. The storm broke, both outside and within the penthouse. Nora stood at the heart of it, her resolve unshaken despite the revelations about Claire's past and the new trial. The twins' progress was undeniable. Lily now named shapes with confidence, while Rose could track moving lights with a grin that lit up the room. But Claire's admission, her raw confession of care, had shifted something in Nora. It wasn't just about the twins anymore. It was about the fragile, unspoken bond growing between her and Claire, a bond that could either save them or break them. Nora pushed for transparency. "If there's a new trial, we need to know everything," she told Claire, her voice steady but gentle. They sat in the study, the Foundation's files spread between them. Claire hesitated, then handed over a folder. "It's a neural stimulator," she said. "Non-invasive, experimental. It could amplify what Patel's therapy is doing. But there are risks, seizures, overstimulation." Her voice trembled. "I can't make that choice again. Not alone." Nora reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining. "You're not alone," she said, and Claire's grip tightened, her eyes searching Nora's for strength. It was a moment of surrender, not just to the trial but to the trust they were building. Nora felt the weight of it, the thrill and terror of what it meant to care for Claire, to love her in a way she hadn't planned. The trial began the next week, under Patel's supervision. The twins wore small headsets that pulsed gentle signals, paired with Nora's therapy games. The results were immediate. Lily described a sparkly circle during a session. Rose laughed at a flashing red light, calling it dancing. Nora's sketches captured their joy, each page a testament to their fight. Claire joined them daily, her presence steadying, her smiles tentative but growing. Nora caught her watching, not just the twins but her, and each glance felt like a step toward something new. But the risks Claire feared weren't abstract. One evening, Rose had a mild seizure during a session, her small body trembling. Nora held her, her heart pounding, while Claire called Patel, her voice sharp with panic. The episode passed, but it left them shaken. In the quiet aftermath, Claire broke down, tears streaming as she clutched Nora's hand. "I can't lose them," she whispered. "I can't lose you." Nora pulled her close, their foreheads touching. "You won't," she said, her voice fierce. "We're in this together." The embrace was a promise, a tether in the storm. Nora knew then that she loved Claire, not just as the twins' mother, but as a woman carrying impossible weight with impossible grace. The trial continued, adjusted for safety. The twins' progress surged. Lily read a simple word on a card, "Son," her voice triumphant. Rose drew a wobbly star, her first since the diagnosis. Patel's scans confirmed it. Their visual cortex was rewiring, their sight partial but growing. It wasn't a cure, but it was hope, real and tangible. On the final day of the trial, Nora and Claire took the twins to Central Park, the air crisp with spring. The girls ran ahead, their laughter echoing, their steps surer than ever. Claire slipped her hand into Nora's, her touch warm and certain. "You saw what no one else did," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You gave them back to me." Nora's eyes stung, but she smiled. "They gave themselves back. I just listened." Claire turned to her, her gaze open, unguarded. "And you listened to me," she said. "Even when I pushed you away." She leaned in, her lips brushing Nora's in a soft, tentative kiss. It was brief but electric, a beginning rather than an end. As the twins called them over, pointing to a bright red kite soaring above, Nora and Claire walked hand in hand, their hearts full. The twins weren't fully sighted, and they might never be, but they saw the world in their own way, through light, through love, through the truth Nora had fought for. And in that truth, Nora found her own, a family, a purpose, and a love that saw beyond the darkness.